Good morning. Can you guys see me?
You know, the back end, it's not like showing anybody. I'm trying to fix it, but I might
Okay,
restart the
not me.
meeting
I won't worry
if it
about it.
doesn't fit. Yeah.
Okay.
We
Oh,
did
I
our-
think it fixed. Is it good now, you guys?
By state order opens. to
Morning,
pack
Rich.
crowds. My friend said, man, Darwin is going to be busy giving out awards. Okay.
Morning.
Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I'm not seeing myself here. Do I need to hit start video?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How's that?
Great. Hey, Sarah, do you want to stay a little bit late at the end and we'll see if you log out if the meeting will continue if you make me co-host, okay?
Okay.
Okay, who are we missing? We're missing Kim. Brian's going to be joining us via phone and not on video. So but is Kim? I think Kim is the only one. And Jamie. Okay.
So which Brian is?
Brian Stewart.
Oh, by
Okay.
phone. Okay.
He sent me an email that he won't be, on Zoom, but he's calling in via phone.
And did Brian Colbert say anything about this?
I talked to him over the weekend. He made it sound like he'd be here.
Okay. I just texted him to remind him.
I've been sending things to him and letting him know, for example, where he's going to be in terms of the order of the agenda.
Gotcha.
Okay, so and he's been CC'd on all meeting notices. Hey, Jamie. Welcome.
Yes. Nice to see you all.
Good morning, Jamie. I like your beard.
Yeah, the quarantine is strong. March 13th, that was the last time I haven't shaved since March 13th. How about that?
Wow.
Did you know it was going to be so white? I like it. It's a
I
good
know.
look.
I've got a good gig coming up in December. I'm going to be zooming in.
Yeah. You can
Virtual
do the
Santa.
you could do the pancake breakfast.
Yeah. Virtually at the fire department. I know I'm giving Rich a run for his money.
Yeah, well, I've had mine since I
My
was
husband-
born.
My husband really wants me to cut his hair, but I'm afraid to. I'm afraid that if I shave it like with a razor, which I used to do to my kids, I just think it's going to look horrible. I'd rather have it long.
Look, I don't want to brag, but last night the daughter did my hair.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Those
She
stripes.
got the edges well.
Wow.
Okay, now I'm totally
Wow.
totally going to do that to my husband. I think my kids will shave his hair.
Only took an hour and a half.
We're waiting on, it looks like Kim, it's 8:31, should we start or do you want to wait a little longer?
Let's go.
Okay.
Yep, let's go.
Shoot her a text.
All right, good morning and welcome to the May 12th, 2020 meeting of the San Anselmo Economic Development Committee. In light of the shelter in place order for the coronavirus, San Anselmo Town Hall is closed to the public and this meeting is being held virtually today. I'm Jessica Rising and I'm the chair of the EDC. The members of the Economic Development Committee are participating today via online or by phone. The public are participating online or by phone as well. We have several discussion items on the agenda. For each item, I will call on someone to provide a report or introduction. Then I will allow each committee member to comment. Then I will open time for public comment. We will call on members of the public to comment if they have raised the virtual or real hand. And as a reminder, please remember to mute yourself unless you're actually talking because we can hear everything on our end that's going in the background. Up first is open time for public expression. Members of the public may address the EDC regarding items that are not on the agenda. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment?
Jessica, can we just approve the
No,
minutes?
we-
before you
we-
do that?
We're going to approve the minutes after. Oh,
Okay,
We have a member of the public with their hand raised, so I'm going to allow them to speak. Their name is Lori.
Lori. Okay, welcome, Lori.
So you can unmute yourself, Lori.
Unmute now.
Perfect.
All right. Can you hear me? If not, see me.
We saw a photo and we can hear you.
Okay, very good.
You have
So
the floor.
I have the floor. Thank you. So I'm sitting in my shop window across the street from Town Hall, doing what I do now, which is making hats for imaginary people. So
Oh.
I'm very keen to get going again because actually I've been ready with what I need to do under the new normal for some time. I have masks, I have disinfectant, I have wipes. I've gotten pretty good at my little procedures here to wipe all the whatever goes, the little noses that press against my window. So I'm ready. And so I'm asking the committee to consider pushing back, nudging the health department forward. It was very disappointing to not be able to at least legally do curbside last Friday. It was really crushing. And so I have to say that I feel that allowing real estate agents to show occupied homes has a disparate impact on the small businesses here, the small retailers in this community, which are primarily women, minority-owned, senior citizens as well. I feel that we can control who comes into our shop, how many, how few. Actually, it's going to be more one-on-one, private appointments. I think we know what we need to do. And this sort of slow reopening is really crushing an already challenging retail environment. I wanted to suggest to the committee to do things that, say, San Rafael and Novato have already done, such as grants, micro grants. I know that there was a survey. I'm very eager to see what the results are. I don't know how widely folks answered, but you know, I know there's perhaps employees in the town or volunteers who could come around and find out what our little needs are: signage, Maybe some folks need assistance with PPE. It'd be an economy of scale and all buy into a biobotanical disinfectant wipe that would something we could all use instead of bleach and toxic things. I have a source for that. So I'm really encouraging like micro grants. $500 can go a long way for a tiny little business like mine. I think that the restaurants have really shown us, pointed the way on how to do it. I sit across the street from the olive oil shop and I watch how they handle their customers, and I can see what I need to do. And I'm not expecting a rush of people. It's not going to be like that. It's going to be something we can handle. So I really want the town to push back and get us going. I think it's something the town needs to do, not just sit idly by. I know the health department director has his vision is very much governed by his own personal experience, but we know what the new normal is. It's not going to matter if it's a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's time to get on with it. Finally, I want to say that I reviewed the most recent Economic Development Committee report, and I looked at, of course, the most recent town email. So that's why I found this meeting this morning. And it's not enough to tell us, oh, pivot to online. That's not what makes San Anselmo unique. It's not what makes people come here. It's quirky little shops, myself included, many others. You have to actually come in and see what we have. If you're telling us, oh, just become another online retailer, it's really not what the town, what you're trying to promote here. We're different. We want people to come here. They now have to come here and behave in the new way. Make an appointment, be ready to stand in line. If it's that busy, I don't think there's going to be a line out my door, but come with a mask on, and I'll have one if you don't have one. Be prepared to put gloves on. So just in closing, I want to say, the small retailers here put the sell in San Anselmo. We have to start selling, and soon. Rent is due. Looking at May 18, June is just around the corner. It doesn't look like I'm going to be able to legally have people come in my shop till July. I mean, it's crushing. And I know my situation is small potatoes compared to, say, Benedetto's situation. I know it's really hard, but the development committee is the spearhead here to push back, and let's get on with this. Thank you.
Lori, thank you so much for your comments. What is the name of your shop?
Madge and Me, M-A-D-G.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, any other public comments? Okay, moving on, let's look at the meeting minutes from April 14th. Are there any requests for changes? If not, I move that they are approved as is. Can I have somebody make a motion, please? Can you guys, you need to unmute if you're gonna.
Make a motion to move the minutes.
I
To
second.
approve the minutes.
Okay, Kelly second, great. Okay, let's move on to the update on COVID-19 shelter in place.
Let's take the vote now.
Oops.
We have to vote.
Oh, okay, sorry. Richard, for the meeting minutes.
It
Are
might
they
be,
approved?
or it might help to just ask for all those in favor, and maybe people can raise their hands so it's easy
Okay.
to spot.
All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes, please raise your hand.
Thanks.
Do we have everyone, Elise?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on. The next item on the agenda is the COVID-19 shelter-in-place update. And I'll start off, but Elise, I also think that you should also be involved in this as well. When this COVID-19 hit, the EDC decided to launch an emergency task force. And we didn't know the scope of how large it was going to be. And there were several things that started unraveling. The members of the task force include Elise Simonian, Dave Donnery, John Wright, Councilman John Wright, Kelly Warner has joined, and also myself. There were several things that we worked on, and very quickly, because it was really an all hands on deck urgent system. The first thing that we put together, and it's still a work in progress, and this is one of the greatest barriers we had, was a contact list that would be accurate with emails so that we could outreach to our businesses in San Anselmo. When we started with the list, there were roughly, I believe, around 300 emails that we started. And then what we did is we got the town staff, led by Elise, to go and try to cull the email addresses. We're up over 600. Is that correct, Elise, at this point? And then the next has been those emails that we don't have. We've recently sent out a postcard to all businesses where we did not have an email address. Can you report out, Elise, on how we're doing with the since then with the postcard?
So we, I haven't received any. I haven't received any response to the postcard. We did have 5 more people complete the survey after we mailed out the postcard. The postcard would have gone out on Monday, like a week ago. And then, so the list hasn't grown very much since sending the postcard yet.
Okay. So that was one of the things that we had done. The next was launching an online COVID-19 business resource center. And what we wanted it to be was really a one-stop shop type of resource center with various areas that concentrated first on financial, how to help, how to find resources such as grants, how to apply for grants, how to apply for loans, what's available. And the other sections include other help, local advertising, the essential businesses, how to help San Anselmo businesses, and in other words, how the community can help, a link to our business survey, and also information on taxes and business licenses. This resource center has been growing. It's not a stagnant sort of thing. And the more information that we find, and grants and other things have been added to this resource center. So anybody who has any idea of resources that we don't have posted, please send to Elise. And a special thank you to Elise. It's just amazing what has been put together so quickly. The next thing that we had on the agenda was going over the needs assessment survey. The task force quickly put together a 17-question needs assessment survey that is on SurveyMonkey. The areas that we covered include demographics on the types of businesses, whether people own or lease their building, how many employees, what type of effect COVID-19 is having, revenue changes, what they're most concerned about, what assistance would be most helpful, and contact information. What was most eye-opening to me, which has been in front of me, is the question of how soon will you be out of business if things don't change? And that was really eye-opening. We've got over 150 businesses who have responded, and we're continuing to request businesses fill out the survey. This information will be great with using right now as well as in the future. The last thing, the partnership with Marin County Small Business Development Center. Dave, can you report out on that partnership?
Sure. So I think most of you are aware that we've had a standing relationship with the Small Business Development Center of Marin and Miriam Hope Corral, who is the director. We were early on, we realized that, we kind of thought we would try to put our own, sort of content together and try to help businesses. And I spoke with Miriam, and basically they had ramped up very quickly. She hired extra staff. They have a robust program of webinars that kind of help people get ready to apply for grants, actually apply for grants, other loan programs. So we have been sort of latched on to what she's already doing, so we don't have to repeat it. And one thing that I'm hopeful for is that businesses actually take advantage, sign up with her, because there are actual individual business consultants that will become available if you become a member over there, and I believe it's free. We've worked with Miriam before to provide some content-based trainings, and this is an extension of our relationship with her, and I just feel like it's an incredible resource, and we're hoping people are taking advantage of it. And kudos to John years ago for hooking us up with Miriam and the SBDC.
Thank you so much, Dave. The other things that the task force launched was communication outreach. And we decided that we wanted to do a weekly San Anselmo COVID-19 business update newsletter. And we made the commitment that we were going to do it weekly. And we've been hitting that target. Every week it goes out. And we also have been doing a lot of outreach on social media, as well as Nextdoor social media. And if anybody has any ideas about what they'd like to add to the newsletters, please let us know. We sent you copies of the existing previous 3 newsletters. I sent you the one that just went out yesterday, and I've asked that all of you be added to the email list. And I want to remind you, if you haven't done so already, to make sure you hit the yes, subscribe button on the email that came out. The other thing that the town has worked on was the support for the restaurants with the curbside pickup. Do you want to report out, Dave, on that? How that?
Absolutely. So that's it's called the program's called San Anselmo Eats, and we met with the Chamber of Commerce. I believe it was the Monday. It must have been the 15th. It's the 16th of March when we knew this was coming, and working with the chamber, the program got stood up within a day, and it's really the chamber that put it together. That's a program that offered curbside loading zones to any restaurant that wanted them for pickup of food. And Pat Townsley, primarily, I believe, put together a website that's just amazing. It's if you haven't been to it, it's a restaurant that has participating businesses and other food service. It has he has ongoing specials kind of at the top, so it's been heavily used. I know restaurants are suffering hugely, but at least there is this source of revenue for people coming to eat. I know one restaurant that's just doing, I think, Thursday through Sunday over at Madcap, doing kind of one menu, and then that's working for them. They're doing the same thing over in Fairfax at Village Sake. So, kudos to the chamber for standing this thing up so quickly and managing it so well. It's worked well for those who are using it.
Thank you so much. And what I also thought was quite amazing is the curbside. You actually set up the parking spots and the special, areas for people to be able to drive right up to the restaurant and get that curbside delivery service. So thank you. So those are some of the things that the task force and the town has been working on. Before we move forward on looking at what's next, I'd like to open it up to the EDC members for comments and questions. All of you were sent copies of a lot of the graphics and information and newsletters. So comments and questions to EDC members. Anybody have any comments?
Specifically on what? I'm sorry, which?
On what the task force, what we just covered under the task force, the either the newsletter, the social media, the partnership with the Marin County Small Business Development Center, the training, the one-stop shopping business resource center, the needs assessment survey, and also the contact list. Any comments around any of those items? Any?
John.
Brian?
Yeah, I just had a question for Dave. Dave, do we have any idea how many local businesses have in fact availed themselves of the SBDC activities in the last few weeks? I get that.
We don't get those stats. I've heard anecdotally through, I don't know if Jamie had any involvement with SBDC, but I've heard.
We can't hear you, Dave.
You're cutting out.
Oh, he froze.
Oh, Dave is frozen.
This is Sean. Just want to let me know I just joined. Sorry.
Hi, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So no, we don't have any direct data on that, John, but we have heard anecdotally that
Okay.
people have been receiving money.
We know that a lot of people have been visiting the COVID-19, the business toolkit, the resource center. We know that over 150 business owners have responded to our needs assessment survey. But that's a good thing to find out how many businesses are going to the Small Business Center for and using their services.
I have a question, also kind of based on the Lori that spoke earlier. When do we think we'll publish some of the results, or how are you envisioning that happening in terms of the survey results?
What we were envisioning is waiting a couple more weeks because we just sent out the postcards out last week, and so we're hoping to get some more respondees and to fill out the survey. And then I think that the survey results themselves are quite interesting. I think that it's really going to be between the town and the EDC on how these, the results are communicated out. I know that for me, looking at it in terms of next step and projects, there's wonderful data. Like, for example, Kelly, you're working on the outreach to the property owners. We have a question and we're trying to cull information regarding that. And we're able to separate the data by type of demographic of the business. So that's to be determined. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. I just didn't,
Okay.
it just sounded like she was interested in getting, we just should figure out which data we might want to publish.
Right, and we've actually been using the data because it's live time. We can go in and take a look at it. For example, the number one thing that people needed help with right away was financial. So when designing the resource center, the number one item on the resource center is finances. And that's been our main push, is really helping people get connected with the Small Business Development Center on how to quickly apply for loans, how to, what paperwork you need so that when the minute, online opens to get the loans, people are ready to go. It's also, grants, Salesforce grants, Facebook. We've really been, the big push up front was financial, because that's what the stats from the survey are showing. So we've been actually using the stats with our task force moving forward on the efforts that we've been doing and the priority of them.
And then the newsletter that's going out to all those people that have answered the survey. Is that right?
Anybody who's on the business list that we've been creating, as well as like to EDC members. And again, we encourage everybody who is interested in what we're doing with our business efforts related to COVID-19 to send an email to planning@townofsananselmo.org with your information so that you can be added to the list.
So
and that's been the biggest challenge is being able to contact our businesses.
I was just wondering though, based on what Lori said, because she wanted to see results, I'm just wondering in the newsletter, maybe we would just want to highlight like that we got overwhelming, interest in these three things or something, and that's what we're doing. Like just sort of being more transparent with it is my only, because obviously you're reacting to what they've said in the survey, but maybe we just need to say that in the newsletter. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And we've been encouraging people in the newsletter, we've been encouraging every newsletter for people to fill out the survey. We've talked about the survey. The link to the survey is on the resource center, so people can actually fill it out and see what questions are there. And the intention is to be fully transparent with the results and with our efforts as the EDC moving forward, because it's really going to take the entire community, to partner together to create recovery for our businesses and moving on. So yes, the intention is full transparency with the survey results.
And I'll just chime in really quick. I think Kelly's idea of letting them know that we're acting on it now is really important because the lack of information is troublesome, I think, or can
Yes.
become troublesome. So I think
Okay.
John and Jamie both had their hands up.
Jamie, you go
Right.
first. Jamie, go ahead.
Just speaking to the grants and the finances are related to that, being that the primary question people are coming in with is finances. My take on what I've seen in the San Anselmo Merchant Group and my own personal experience is that the money that came in was too late, and that's it did come in for a bunch of people. It came in like over the last 2 weeks, people have gotten money. It came in different amounts than people expected. You may have seen that announced about 7 weeks ago. They said it won't be 10,000. It will be dependent upon number of employees. And if I could sum up the experience of getting finances, it would be too little, too late. So what I'm trying to communicate is that the 2 weeks makes a big difference.
Mhm.
And this was about 4 weeks, 6 weeks, for a lot of people afterwards. So when the number one question is finances, I think there's been an inundation of financial resources and overwhelming for most small businesses. I'm a technical person and I was able to navigate it. Most are not technical, and most were not able to navigate it and are still not able to navigate it. So what I'm suggesting is that pointing people to the resources at this point isn't actually doing anything. And I only say that because that's the feeling from the retailers. I'm not saying that from my perspective. I want to be clear. I understand that we're doing something, that it takes effort and work, and that there's a massive amount of communication needed. But from the perspective of the merchants on the avenue, it's 6 weeks late in information, totally irrelevant today. And what they're really saying is they need access to finances, not information where to get finances. Like I went through all the SBDC stuff and I was like, if I see another Zoom webinar explaining how not to get $10,000, I'm going to put my headphones through my head, right? Like nobody wants that. And they do want access to the $10,000. And so I think like we have to read those results. We have to interpret the results for what they're saying to us. They're not saying, tell us resources like Salesforce. Dave, and I appreciate every link you've sent out. I've looked at least, I've gone to the site. I go through all the links because I'm searching for any options. Applying to Salesforce is like buying a lottery ticket in check. Like you might win a European lottery by applying into the Salesforce. And the same for Facebook. We'd love to see them giving out $10 million, but they're also made, $4 billion in the quarter. And the $10 million in the Bay Area isn't going to do anything. So what I'm saying that is like the frustration that's going to come from people isn't that we're not telling them resources. They're not going to look back and remember that we gave them resources. They're going to remember that we didn't give them access to money. And I know that's harsh because maybe this is a big reveal I shouldn't reveal, but like our committee has no money. So, there's like we don't have what they need or what they want, but yet at the same time, maybe that should be our mission, is to actually do some fundraising as a committee. And I don't know what that looks like. I'm just saying that if we want a positive result from the San Anselmo merchant community, it's going to have to come from actual dollars, not resources to dollars.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie.
So,
John.
yeah, so getting back to the other comment made by the Lori in the public comment about putting pressure on the health director, who happens to be a San Anselmo resident. And I just wonder, Dave, you're probably closer. I'm sure he's getting fantastic pressure now, but it did occur to me that we actually have some data that might be interesting to him because it's coming from San Anselmo, from our survey, right? And this would be something I think quite feasible to do, using the data we have about how many businesses said they're going to go under within a month or 2 months. I could easily see us sending a letter to him, and maybe we can accomplish the delegation of authority to do that on this call. That I'd be happy to work with Jessica and Dave on a letter that we could send to Matt that says, we had the survey, here are these results. We know you're getting a lot of pressure. You know, your town needs help, all the towns do, but here's some real data from businesses about what's going to happen. So I'd like to suggest that we actually do that. It's something quite feasible to do. And something that I think would at least be seen as some proactive effort on our part. I'm sure there's plenty of lobbying going on of Matt Willis these days and all the health directors everywhere, but we have some special data from his town that might, I'm not saying it's going to change anything, but at least it will be something.
I actually recommend that we do that. I know that everybody on the task force was incredibly upset that we were not able to allow our non-essential businesses to open up for curbside. We had actually started, a newsletter and a whole campaign to help these people with opening up and what does that look like and how do you have to do that. And we had to put the brakes on it. So I agree that that putting a letter out there to the public health director with our data backing it up would be a good thing that the EDC could do. What does everybody else think?
It's me. Yeah. I like to say, first of all, Jamie, I agree with 100% with what you said, that now we don't want to, nobody, including the chamber, not just the EDC or the town, be linked to the failure maybe of accessing fund because of the complexity of the application. So it's a very good point. And that's why sincerely the chamber has been kind of stepping back from the idea of fundraising, because it is an issue then related on the distribution of fundraising and some kind of a chamber memory, institutional memory of what happened after the flood, that somebody raised money, then it was very confusing how the money was actually dispersed and all of that. And that was one of the last suggestions from Connie Rogers, by the way, when she transferred power, stay away from raising money if it's not clear how the money will be actually dispersed on a local level. So, following on Jamie, I agree that the EDC should make very clear there is no money. The job of the EDC is to transfer basically suggestion to the town, to the manager of the town and the town council of what the business, merchant, and so on community is kind of would like to see, nothing else. So we should make that very clear. I agree. And in terms of the letter, actually of the health director, I read the article. There is an interview actually. I was reading that yesterday on Marine Magazine, and I realized that, he's a San Anselmo resident. So today I was actually asking that might be a good idea to ask him to talk to us, because one, sincerely, in my personal, not just business or chamber role, what is confusing to me is how the decisions are taken looking at the numbers that the county is sending out every day in their newsletters. We had 2 people at the hospital, 1 0 for many days in a row, 14 total deaths. So it would be very interesting for everybody to know based on what this extension of the very strict quarantine has been decided upon, and then maybe people like the lady you talked earlier might be less upset why it was extended, or we might be more upset why we cannot do it. And then I was going to actually submit under my time slot for the chamber, and so I reserve that later, but just want to be sure that it's part of this conversation, that we actually put together some requests specifically for restaurants and food establishments that we would like to go up the chain to the county, the town, everybody involved, based of interviews that I did over the last 10 days. I don't want to say with every single restaurant, but with many of them. So just for you to know that later on, what I'm going to talk about when is my time, I think should be inserted only in that letter that I agree 100% should be sent to,
Okay.
to what his name, Mr.
Matt Willis. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so, all right, thank you, Benedetto. Anybody else?
I just want to mention too to Jamie, and if he could pass along to others, is, I mean, I understand the frustration. I don't, like, I don't want to send people just to go look for grants they can't get either. The one thing that we hear again from Miriam at the SBDC is that, and I'd like to know if any of you've tried this to see if it's for real, but she just says, call, like, we're here to talk to a person and answer their personal questions about these problems. And so I'm kind of curious to know if anyone's tried that and if they are actually that responsive, because she said they're willing to do one-on-one help and she wouldn't expect anyone to go look at a webinar.
Right, and I want to, oh, go ahead, Brian.
No, I just have I'm looking at the agenda and I'm sort of trying to figure out when might be an appropriate time for me to sort of offer a framework of how the county sort of addressing it. It might provide some insight into the roles.
Yeah, I sent you an email last night. You're under 4E, under the brainstorming additional support for businesses.
Okay, great. So then I will weigh in at that point because I can provide some context as to where Dr. Willis stands with all the other various stakeholders in Marin.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
And I have one more thing, Jessica. I wanted to make sure everybody, it was in my newsletter, that there is a website called marinrecovers.com that kind of has the, the process to get us through all of this, all the way to the end of the stay-at-home order, and sort of what the tactics the county and a lot of the towns are, the towns are all involved, are to get us through. And it gives a lot of great detail to not only individuals, but also to businesses and employees. So I recommend, I understand Jamie's frustration. We don't need links, we need cash. Well, cash is going to be a heavy lift in a small town to really get dollars into people's hands. We're looking at all kinds of options that I need to say out loud that we are looking at every option that we can there. It's going to be a difficult challenge, but we're hopeful that we can do something. And I appreciate Lori's comment about $500 could be very impactful. So that's really important. But I would recommend everybody would go look at Marin Recovers. And one of the things I'm taking away from this is that we need to even get more information out so people know that we're not just sitting on our hands. We're working 12-hour days on this stuff, and there's just so many pieces of it that it's difficult to kind of keep that communication train going.
Thank you.
Can I just really quick? I'd echo that too. Jessica sent out that link to Marin Recovers with all of the backup information for our meeting. And I feel like Matt, he's got a real, he set it all up in terms of where they are, what needs to be done. He's very methodical. That being said, I also think it wouldn't hurt for us to do the letter with our data, because that's going to just help them understand the plight. I think that the tug, of course, is always health versus economy. And obviously the whole country is dealing with that. So, but it would be nice. I think it would be good for him to see that. And maybe we can then attach it to the newsletter update, the weekly newsletter, so the merchants can see that we're also gathering the data and sending it out. I know there was a message on the Q&A from Lori after we started talking, and she just said it would be helpful for us to give them updates on the survey results on a rolling basis rather than waiting for it to all come in. That was her comment while we were talking. It's gone now.
Okay.
But anyway, that's just being said. I would also encourage everyone to look at the Marin Recovers, because Matt is very thorough in terms of how he's going through it, not unlike Gavin Newsom. So anyway, I think all the health directors in California are sort of on the same page. So.
Yeah, and just to echo that and what Brian said, Matt's getting heavy pressure from all the industry groups. So ours, I agree with John. We need to add that data to his, sort of pot of thinking. So we'll certainly do that. But I'm on enough calls with him during the week to hear some of the actual pressure he's receiving.
Other committee members?
Jamie's got his hand up. Go ahead, Jamie.
I just want to be clear about 2 quick points. One is, it wasn't my expression of on the cash. I want to be clear that I really do appreciate us gathering all the resources, but that it's the perception in the general business community, the frustration. 2, I'm just saying I don't want to become the voice of the frustration. I am the voice of positivity and belief. 2, I also want to be very clear. I do not support a letter to Matt Willis encouraging an opening. That I am not a believer in the current opening because I've seen no new information from the national government, from our local government, as to what our risks are. And personally, I'm slightly risk adverse, but without information, I can't make an educated decision as to what's best for me, my family, my neighbors, the community. And I would say that with 7,000 tests done in the county of Marin, it's a joke to think that any of us know anything about what's going on. That the amount of people in the hospitals is irrelevant because we don't know how many people are sick at home. And that our local community in San Anselmo is actually an older community. And while I've seen a new influx of young families that I love having in our community, it makes it feel very alive. I also see them all biking around. The kids have helmets on, the dads don't. They're holding their coffee cups, and they're not going to get the virus. I know that they have that belief, but I don't have that belief, and I don't want. I'm fine by whatever our committee does and votes on, but I personally will not sign that letter saying that we should open the economy. And I think that all of our jobs should be to figure out what the new level of safety is, not how to make a few dollars at the risk of people's lives.
Yeah.
That's just my take of what economics is today, is safety, not actual dollar bills.
Yeah, Dave, Jessica, I'd like to say something along those
go
lines.
ahead.
Because a lot of this has actually been falling on Public Works. Everything from shutting down our parks to, health salons opening up, giving them compliance orders, landscapers. And so this has been a conversation I've had with other community development directors and trying to protect staff and the public. And the one question I keep asking, and I like what you said, Jamie, because I feel like what we need to ask ourselves, and I'm not saying anything is one position is wrong or right, but if it's about health, I don't think we should be just opening things up just because. If it's about politics and money, well, yeah, yes, it's hurting our economy. But as a public works director, I feel like my job is public safety and protecting the health and property and of individuals. And so I just want to make sure that we're not just doing this because it is, I know it is hurting us economically. And believe me, it's really hard for me to tell one guy who's a landscaper that he has to go home, or tell the hair salon to shut down. But I just want to make sure, as a professional and as an engineer and doing my job, that we're doing it for the right reasons. And I agree completely with Jamie. There's not enough testing, So, I'm not Matt Willis. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you that a lot of this, I love the idea of opening up outdoor seating, and I'm on that task force, and I really want to figure that out because I think it's really important for the economy and for our businesses. But I want to make sure it's done right, and that it's not going to create, a burden on staff or put my staff at risk for enforcing it. And so I just want to get my 2 cents worth there. So
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, I just think, I'm happy to wait till brainstorming, but I think the context of the letter might be, there might be other stakeholders that the letter might be appropriate, that the committee might decide might be appropriate to send it to after my comments under brainstorming, just as a caveat, because there's any number of players engaged in this, orbiting or outside Dr. Willis. So I'll just put that comment up.
Yeah, I like to make a quick comment that to me seems a logical fallacy to say that we don't have enough data to decide. So if we don't have enough data to decide to reopen, based on which data you support to stay closed, for the time being. I don't get that point. I get the data every day from the county. I've been getting that data for the last almost 90 days, that Marin County has had a total of 14 deaths and a total of less than 300 hospitalizations. So that's the data we have. I also had direct data because I have a contract with the County of Marin about hosting first responders, self-quarantine, and any other unessential business. And so far, I've received a big zero number of any of them. And I know that is the same basically for every single hotel in the county. So if people don't feel safe, they can stay home. However, keeping the strict shelter-in-place rule for everybody else forces the people who are younger, who have an actual need to go out, not to be able to do it. You know, nobody's going to force Jamie to walk out. Jamie, you can stay and grow your beer for, you know, for 20 years and we'll keep talking again. However, and I also find kind of, you know, offensive to talk about money like money doesn't count. Money is food on the table for many families. And, you know, and so look into that, and money is going to be an issue with the town at one point without any sales tax. So the town is not really, it is maybe for the time being isolated from a big financial risk, but everything at one point will collapse if we do not go back to a normal life within safety. And we are responsible individuals, so we know how to play safe. And Marin County, based on the data of the county, has not been it practically at all. It is 5 zeros, I believe, past the decimal point.
Thank you, Benedetto. I'd like to bring all of us back to what's on the table right now, which is whether we're going to write a letter to Matt Willis. And there's been the suggestion of using data from our needs assessment survey. So far, I'm in favor of it. Kelly is a yes. Anybody else? What about Rich, Kim, you know, anybody else?
Can I just,
Jamie is not.
wait, can I just say one?
Yes.
I think it just really depends on the tenor of the letter. I was under the impression that we were going to give some of the survey results as data for them, but I am not in favor of saying that he should override all of his health, everything that he's got set up in terms of how he's proceeding carefully. So that's my differential, was that I think we should give him some of the survey results, some of that data, but I do not want to direct him to reopen. I think that we have to trust the health department to do the right thing on that. So for me, in terms of signing it, I'd have to see how it was, the tenor of the letter. So that's just where I stand. So anyway, I'll mute myself.
Let me just if I could clarify. Yeah, my idea of the letter was just that it would actually be presenting that we have this data. He's considering a lot of things, right? But this is very specific data from San Anselmo that we've gathered. And so I was not intending that, in my mind, that the letter would be urging him to do one thing or another. It would just be to say, here's some additional data that we really is just to let you know what the economic impact, but not actually saying, you know, please open now, not that. So it would be a pretty neutral letter in that respect. And yes, it would be copied, to Brian's point, to other people, you know, Katie Rice and whoever else. But it would really be a pretty narrow letter that just really is talking about the data.
You know, Jessica, I agree with that. One of the things you find is that all of these pronouncements that come down from the various jurisdictions who seem to know what should be done and what could be done, I don't know how much of an impact that has on people's behavior. I think that people are responding almost intuitively. If you go down into San Anselmo and you see that the merchants have done a very, very good job of trying to adhere to their interpretation of what's possible and what's not possible, one person in the shop at a time, or you can't come in, we'll come out. Or so, you know, the letter is just one more piece of evidence that people can use to process, but I don't know that we're in a position that we're ever going to legislate behavior.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rich. Anybody else on the committee? Is Brian Stewart via phone right now? Brian, are you here?
There's no one on the phone line.
Okay.
It's all
So he did not
profile.
call in. Okay, what about Kim? Kim Pipkin, are you here?
I'm here in my kitchen. Yeah. I'm just
What is
listening.
your opinion
On what?
on what's right here right now is forwarding a letter to the public health officer and CCing other individuals with our data from the survey and our concerns about what's going on, and have it be a real neutral letter, but it backs up the data from our needs assessment survey of what our businesses are facing and what they're feeling right now.
So I agree with John Wright. We just are pretty much wanting to provide data so that the county stakeholders can use it. But I don't think we should be opening up until we know definitively what the health status is.
Okay, so then you're in favor of a letter then with.
Yeah, I mean, it's valuable information that I think that people should use. I mean, there's a lot of people who live here in Marin, including the governor, who might want to know about what we're collecting.
Okay. All right, thank you. Then I'd like to make a move that the committee approves the creation of drafting a letter that would be focused on sharing of information from our needs assessment survey. Anybody like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thanks, Rich.
I second.
Okay, Kelly, everybody in favor? Can you raise your hand, please? Anybody not in favor? I can't see, so.
No, it's all good.
We're good?
Everyone,
Okay.
it was everyone unanimously.
Okay, perfect. The task force is going to be meeting this afternoon, so we will put that at the top of our list for agenda items to work on today. Thank you so much. All right, any other questions and comments about some of the things that we had talked about previously about efforts to date? Okay, if nobody has any more questions or comments, what about public? Does the public have any comments? And I actually want to thank all of you. This is my first official meeting, and it's via Zoom. So I appreciate your patience with me today. Okay, I'd like to move forward because one of the things we've been focusing on is recovery and how can we move forward. And Rich and Kelly, are you guys ready to present?
Sure.
Okay.
Kelly, you want to start and introduce where
The
this
next
came
thing
from?
on the agenda is in related to the signage and the proposed plan.
So I'm gonna, pretty much Rich is gonna take it away on this one, but we're just looking, there was an idea to come up with some sort of coordinated effort for downtown to show to the public that our town is open for business when in fact it does open. And so Rich came up with a really great campaign. So I'm gonna just turn it over to him because he doesn't really need much more of an introduction than that.
Yeah, the request came in, can you design a sign that lets people know that we're in business? And as we started playing with it, it seemed like you've seen those signs everywhere you go. People have done their own signs. So the question is, how do you take this? In fact, I want to discuss this in the context of another agenda item, which is the branding program and how we codify the rules and requirements for how people interpret the brand and how it comes to start to really truly represent what San Anselmo is all about and present an identity. So thinking about it in that context, it seemed like one message isn't going to do it, open for business, and had this idea that if we just come up with a format that would allow us to pepper the town with a whole lot of messages. It's a kind of feel-good program. Elise, I don't know whether I've got some of the paper versions of what we did. If we don't have, you don't have a way to pull what I.
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Do. Okay, so let us just show you the idea. These are a couple of just samples of what I had in mind, and I can explain how it gets implemented.
It'll take me a second.
These are the other idea is to do these on a cheap. So the thought was originally it was how big does a sign need to be in order to be in a window or be on a wall and say we're open for business. The idea is that these be printed on 1117
Oops.
paper can be done in the town's offices, so there really is no reproduction cost other than whatever your cost of your machine is. And we can produce a lot in quantity. I can hold up the paper ones if you want, Elise.
That might be faster. I'm looking for so many emails from.
I think what looked so marvelous to
Maybe I
me,
put it somewhere logical, like signs.
dealing with the COVID-19 and the reopening and supporting, but it's also the program that you were showing me looks like it can be ongoing too. It's like multi-use.
Well, and then Brian has an agenda item a little further on where our notion is that what
Okay,
we're
got it.
about to show you can be extrapolated to what Brian is talking about too. So the idea here is it's an 1117 piece of paper. It's got the town branding name. It's got Sugarfoot at the bottom. And then the format is a simple, either 4 or 5 letter word, a little subhead that amplifies what that's all about. And then a couple of line, very succinct description of an action item. And just what I did after coming up with these is to go to Google, to thesaurus, and find all the words in the English language that are 4-letter words, and almost every single one of them you can turn into one of these. I kind of liken it to writing a haiku, and what it gives us is an opportunity to even to customize these for the merchants. The idea that you could actually invite them to submit their ideas or what they would like to see as a message in their business. Kelly and Dave and I walked through town and we're looking at whether these things are at 1117 and the size of the text as we have it would be large enough to be able to be noticeable, to be legible. And in fact, you can read the first line and in some cases the second line as you drive by in your car, but it is the repetition that is going to create the impact here. It's a custom that you see in many countries other than the United States, where for advertising situations, the advertisers will do a poster, and then rather than just putting one up, they'll pepper a whole wall with the same poster, almost like a sheet of postage stamps. So we could either make these available to the merchants to put in their windows, and with as many as they're willing to give up the window surface space. And as you drove to town, you would just be barraged with these very spirited, upscale, energetic, friendly indications that this town is alive and it's in business. So, for example, when we were walking down, the idea of doing something that's customized, just as we were standing at Dogville, the idea of the word dogs, and then as a subline could be something like "love us," and then the subtext to that would be "scratch our backs." So it's a subtle way of saying spend your money with us, that we are open for business, and this town is alive and cares. So that's the idea, and be very easy to implement, and assuming that it's something we want to do, we're probably in a position to start cranking these out.
Committee members, what do you comments?
What's the budget? What's the budget for these signs?
The cost of the Xerox machine in town's office.
Okay, so they're easy to do, cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can print them at town hall for about 2 cents each.
Oh, good. That's a good price.
Yeah.
So for example, Lori with her hat company, we could do a special marketing saying into the sign that would be specific for her hat boutique. Is that correct? Her hat shop?
I'm sure that, well, with the word hats, I could come up with about 3 dozen different ways to interpret the wording on that. I was looking for the one I did for Bernadetto on the hotel, but it was
Rich, maybe you can send out to you know, the potential sayings were quite innovative and really differentiated by the type of business. And it was really, it was something that I thought was really a wonderful thing that you and Kelly had put together, and Dave as well.
Well, I can read just to give you an idea. Again, going through the dictionary of 4-letter words. And these are just the main word and the second line, and then the third line can be almost anything.
There we go.
Oh, okay. If you guys can see that. It says acts of kindness, back in business, been shut down, beat the bug, care for SA, come on in, dire straits, doors open, ever grateful, food for thought, give a damn, gone too long. Anyway, you get the idea.
Any other comments or questions from committee members?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. Is that okay?
You're on, Benedetta.
Yeah, first of all, it's a great idea. So absolutely thank you for working on that. I have a suggestion and kind of referring to what Jamie said. If I get another invitation for a seminar or something online, I'm going to shoot myself. And also related to an experience we had with the San Anselmo Inn. Some of our most successful promotion in town was when we mailed a card to every resident. I could not believe how many people told me that was a great card and so on. So if there is any money, or the chamber might chip in something to actually print one that would be the most generic as possible about, not specific to a restaurant, I don't know, or any other business, and mail it out to each resident when they get it in the mail would be really effective. And maybe they keep it on the, on the counter in the kitchen. And maybe as a nonprofit, we could also get a very cheap mailing cost. So if, something to consider.
Well, if the chamber is interested in doing that, certainly to make all of these available to the chamber to do whatever you want with them.
Just to pipe in here, one of the challenges with this program is that we are sort of announcing, maybe prematurely, that the businesses are back in business, and I think we want to do it even at the end of this week, so people are ready for Monday, give those signs out. But I think we talked about asking businesses to put curbside, put something that clarifies that you can't just walk in the business, because this opening on Monday is really a curbside pickup opening, not a full opening. So there's going to be this sequential rollout of the reopenings across all of these industry groups that we're working on. So we need to consider, if we're going to mail something out to the whole town, we need to make it relevant and sort of up to date. And at this point, I'm not sure if we have enough.
Dave, are you suggesting that you're talking about next Monday, right?
Right. Yeah.
You've got a time frame here, and come next Monday, you're going to have certain businesses that are open and many that are still not open, right? So how do you speak to that? If you just took this one and made it the first shot, and so anybody who's open could put this in their window, and then we can just layer on more and more. So over a period of time, you have more people that would have that sign. We can do other versions of this that speak to being open, and then you can do the customized ones, or the ones that are a little more lighthearted and fanciful. And
well, I think what I was trying to refer to was the idea. I love the idea of, and I think we should send out a card to everybody in town. That is the direct mail is one of the most sort of has the biggest impact. It's not ridiculously expensive, as Benedetto said. But I think we should really think about that for after June 1, when we're going to get the sort of bigger new reopening order. We don't have enough. I think we can ramp up and get ready for what this might look like. But I think John mentioned the fact that we don't want to sort of set expectations beyond what this sort of curbside thing is actually going to do. So I think for the standpoint of sending the letter, maybe we do it after we really know what's happening on June 1, and there will be a much larger reopening at that point.
Okay. Brian, can we introduce Brian's? Brian, is this an appropriate time to talk, kind of introduce the conversation we had, because that would be the extrapolation of this program?
Yeah.
Rich, I think it's a little premature for all that. I'd rather sort of get to the brainstorming for what's going on right now.
Okay.
Can I also
Yeah,
interject here? Lori had a public comment that she said we need sweet signage supporting shoppers entering stores with masks on. Shop in person, not online. So at this point, my understanding is that what's going to be opening up is a curbside delivery with non-essential businesses, correct? But for the signage, that was a comment that she had, so I wanted to make note of that.
Great.
Yeah,
Was there any-
I just want to follow up on Rich's comment. Let's see how Benedetto's conversation goes, Rich, and under the brainstorming, and then we'll touch upon that because we've got a pretty full agenda, and I want to make sure that everybody gets to cover what's on there.
Okay, the mailing of the card is out there. Other things that we could possibly use would be like for online advertising. The sky is the limit with the branding. What's out there right now is creating this signage program. Are there any other comments that are available out there from any of our EDC members?
I wanted to add what Dave just briefly said, to be sure that there is no any legal liability, saying that if you have a sign out open and then it's not really open or is not authorized to operate, that the town or the EDC, whoever is going to do the sign, is not somehow complicit in saying that is open when they're not. So to consider also that before posting anything open for business, if it's not really the case.
Well, would there be a distinction between a sign that's specific to one retailer that implies that they're open versus some of these other ones which are just more generic messaging about the vitality of the town?
No, I'm saying that, I'm sorry, I get it, but again, I receive every day tens of emails from legal counselors for Marriott, in my industry, or for restaurant, about being extremely careful about liabilities, reopening, people getting sick. And we know that there are some people out there, chasing litigation. So just my suggestion, that whoever is going to be does not offer any opportunity for a claim that the business was not legally open, so they were in violation of the law.
Right.
That's my
my own label on this program is keep San Anselmo alive, and so if this is just a background noise that suggests that there's still some energy left, there's a heartbeat still in the town.
Richard, I support it 100%. Please believe me, 110%. I'm just thinking as an attorney, and John Wright might agree with that.
Okay, any other comments? Any other public comment?
So we have Nancy with her hand raised. I'm going to allow her to unmute herself. So Nancy, you can unmute yourself if you're ready.
Good morning, committee members. Thank you all for showing up this morning. I just want to thank Rich Burns for doing what he does best. Those flyers look amazing, and I agree with Benedetto. We have to be prudent as to when they go up, how they go up. And I also wanted to maybe suggest that we, down the road, maybe in June, design a banner that could go over Tunstead. It's something that I wanted to take on, but I don't quite have the funds right now, but this might be a good time to think about designing a really nice banner to welcome people to San Anselmo. And this Thursday, I have good news that the flower baskets are going up. So that might, give the town some life and let people know that we are coming back. So thank you, Sean, for all your help, and Dave and everyone. So I'm excited. They're going to go up about 11 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. So thank you. And we will all be in masks, the two people that I have doing it, and we'll be, social distancing and taking care.
Thank you for following the rules.
Thank you so much, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy. It's great.
Any other public comments?
I just wanted to reiterate, thank you, Nancy, so much for doing those flower baskets. They're just incredible. So I really think it's such a nice addition to the town, and everyone will look forward to seeing them back. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy.
Okay, any other comments? I'd like to then make a motion that we move forward with the signage program. Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, can I have a vote, please?
Aye.
Show of hands. Any noes? Okay, Kelly, Rich, Dave, thank you. Okay, what was up next was update from Chamber of Commerce. Would it make sense to go forward with Brian first at this point before that?
I think you have the brainstorm after Benedetto's update. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's go forward. Benedetto, you're ready? You've got 5 minutes for a quick update on Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you. First of all, thanks again, Dave. When you started, you talk about, how fast everything happened, literally. And so particularly Dave and Sean, I couldn't, after the meeting we had at Creekside, I literally walked back to the inn and Sean was already around with the pickup truck putting out the signs. So I think that was a great, show of cooperation, and the chamber and the members are really appreciative of that immediate response. So thank you again about that. And just a quick comment about what Lori said. I just want to clarify, I didn't talk to Lori at all before this meeting, and I didn't even know. First of all, I agree with most of her comments that are shared by most members, but I don't know why she mentioned the San Anselmo Inn. We are okay, like everybody else. We're going through a tough time, but again, we still have very few guests who are essential workers, like we get some from the state of California, or self-quarantines. That said, about the chamber, we have been focusing a lot, besides the work that Pat is doing with San Anselmo East, that added also every other possible merchant, retailer, everybody else. So he has been doing an amazing job. About the restaurants specifically, because we believe that restaurants, hair salon, and gyms will be the most regulated for the reopening, whatever that means. And in the specific case of the restaurant, we counted the day before the shutdown, 31 establishments, food restaurant in town between the Avenue and Red Hill. So it is a big component. Community is a clearly important, component of social life, and of dollars literally in revenues lost. So in our town, just in our town. And I talked to many restaurants, we have, we are celebrating. People are talking about 30 years of Pretty Woman, the movie. Well, Duilio of Valenti and Company was in a scene of the restaurant in Los Angeles, just to understand the experience of our top chefs. Heidi has been around for a long time, Cucina for a long time, Glad and Comfort, and so on. So they have a lot of experience combined hundreds of years in this industry, and they've always been extremely careful about safety for their employees, for the staff, for food. So their suggestion, and I'm going to send them to you, and you will see if it makes sense to include them, add them to the letter. We are going to send this letter anyway, officially, the chamber later on today, are for the authorities to consider, their own experience when setting rules for reopening. And I share not all of them, but just is very important for every business anyway. Whatever is going to be the rules, they got to be temporary, cannot be a new permanent, new normal that might actually force or of them not to even reopen, or not even to bother to reopen. And that some specifics, technicalities, people think that wearing gloves, for example, is good. They don't go into a restaurant if the chef doesn't have the gloves. It is the opposite. Current county health regulations make it basically legal to use gloves. They got to wash their hands all the time between each dish. So we hope that that will stay. Masks, you know, if you have open flames, it is against safety, fire, and insurance covenant rules to wear a mask that can actually, you know, get on fire when you are in a very hot environment. And beside that is actually making hard for safety. They don't see the counter, they don't see, you know, a kitchen is it's like an aircraft carrier deck, is a very dangerous environment. So we are going to present some common sense, you know, expectations for the authorities to consider when it comes to safety, and also some financial considerations. You know, restaurants really work on a thin margin, and for mostly small restaurants like in our town, a reduction of 25% of seats is reasonable, and the owners will accept it as a temporary financial loss, but asking them to reopen with only 25% of tables, we are going to be out of it. So we hope that within the health and safety consideration, also financial consideration will be considered. And more important than anything, restaurants and food establishments, including the breakfast I used to serve back here, you know, at the inn, we have constant inspections by the county health office. So they have already been the most safe environment beside the quality of our own operators. So it's very hard. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
It's very hard, even hard for them to implement more safety when they already been operating under really strict, and they want strict rules. So
the chamber right now is working on a letter to the authorities, and you're working on safety. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. What other things is the chamber doing right now with CV19? I know that you guys did the San Anselmo Eats and San Anselmo Strong. What other initiatives and items is the chamber working on right now?
That's what we are doing. And again, we believe that less is more right now. And, you know, we don't want to overwhelm members and non-members with endless newsletters. As Jamie said before, you know, we could spend a week in a row now attending web seminars and not be done with everything we receive. So I believe that the chamber biggest job now is to be sure that any level of authority understand that we merchants and business owners are extremely responsible. We care about the safety of our employees and our clients, and we will reopen in safety, and that a financial and money consideration is not a bad word. You know, every business is essential for the family that makes a living from that business.
Thank you,
And
Benedetto.
that's our message.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Are there any questions for Benedetto at this point? Any questions from the public?
I wanted to say thanks for all the hard work, Benedetto.
Yeah, the San Anselmo Eats is just amazing what they've done with the curbside. And I'd like to, before we move forward, because in the interest of time, I'd like to make a motion that we move item 5 and 6 to our next meeting, as we're starting to kind of get a little over in time. Is everybody okay with that? If you can raise your hand, moving items 5 and 6. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, the potential for a temporary outdoor dining program. Dave, you wanna like give a quick overview on that?
Absolutely. Let me pop back on here. So one of the things that we've been talking about among the town managers and city managers is the idea of trying to put together a program that would allow for restaurants to set up tables outside. And in San Anselmo's case, that would sort of go along with potential street closures. So, there's a lot of details in kind of how this would be put together, but there's a lot of work going into it. And the idea would be for the summer to potentially shut down San Anselmo Avenue on Friday afternoons and then reopen it on Sunday mornings to allow for a couple, Saturday and then Friday and Saturday nights to allow for outdoor dining and some sort of criteria that meets social distancing requirements. And there's already kind of a setup that's been put together and run through the county. So our hope is that as we move forward, and Elise is helping with this and Sean is helping with this, as we move forward, that we might be able to bring something to the council that would allow for this program, which probably would run, maybe June, July, and August at this point. Some of the considerations we have, we're thinking from Tunstead to Tamalpais, and within that stretch, there's a few restaurants that would for sure take advantage of it. But we're thinking about how we could also benefit some of the restaurants that aren't in that area, potentially by letting them have an area where they could, their restaurant patrons could come and have their own seating. So there's a lot yet to be determined. We just sort of started ramping this up last week, but it's I think 7 of the 11 cities in Marin are really excited about the opportunity. So more on that later. We like I say, we have Sean is actually on the steering committee countywide to really look at all the considerations that we have to make. And so we'll see more later.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions from EDC members?
I guess, good. Who is that?
It's a great idea, Dave, all of you, all of us. And definitely we already talk among some of the, restaurant, the chambers will support it 100%. Just a couple of comments about, risking, we don't want to upset the people who are not on the avenue. Right. So to be sure that we'll be able to allocate them space and the opportunity from, I don't know, Pizzalina, she has the actually portable pizza oven, or the hub, or clearly Insalata and Marinitas among the many. So to be sure that we will include them. And also about ABC regulations, a suggestion, because we looked into that before, to be sure that it is a one-day event, even if it's for the weekend, but each one should be filed as a one-day event, so no requirements for health from the county. So ABC is still enforcing rules really strictly, even during the shutdown. So
And I wanted to mention, I'm sorry, I know we're running out of time. So one of the questions is, how does this shutdown of the street, every weekend affect the merchants who, Jamie's one of them, the merchants who rely on, some sort of opportunity for their customers to come and park and go. So I think we need to expand, as we're just a week old, Benedetto, I think we should have the chamber as a partner in this program. And also I'd like to talk to Jamie about how we might be able to outreach to the merchants, pitch this as a way to, we're going to have a lot of foot traffic downtown, which doesn't happen, it's not there right now. Benedetto's nodding. So I think we need to approach this cautiously and very sort of, in an open way, because it'll be a direct impact on, some of the businesses. So Jamie, do you have any thoughts on that initially?
I think that the overall reception will continue to be negative, as it has been historically from the San Anselmo merchants. I think it's irrelevant as businesses are dying. I guess just the point of concern that I would continue to put forth is, even if people don't support, I personally won't go, but I mean, I think if businesses think they're going to survive by doing that, they should do it.
Yeah.
The streets need to be shut. The sidewalks are too narrow for people to walk by each other currently.
Right.
All those restaurants, Pat pays a premium to be on the avenue. So I don't see anything wrong morally with him having a benefit to being on the avenue as well. By access to that, I don't think we can make it fair to 31 restaurants. So just putting that out there, that making it available, I think it's a great idea. I personally wouldn't do it, but you know, I mean, I won't go, but I think it's a great idea for people who are willing to go. If anyone's seen the picture floating around of people eating in restaurants in Amsterdam and in greenhouses, just one of the most moronic things I've ever seen is to take an outdoor space and make it a small indoor space for an airborne disease. I mean, it's moronic, but it's a really nice aesthetic idea, and it's a very like creative thought. I guess I would just say that like the best news that I could hear from the chamber would be that you are making safety job one, not economics. And I understand that economics are important, Benedetto. I just know that nobody's actually been fed by money, that everyone's fed by food.
Okay.
Dave, I got to run. I just had one quick comment. Besides that, I just had this idea that if we're going to offer the avenue, if that ends up happening, we might want to offer Creek Park to some other businesses too, where they could set up a food stand or something. Just an idea. Okay.
Yeah, this is it's going to be a complex, and I understand the concern about health, and I know that I've already seen some of the diagramming and protocols that are coming into place to try to make sure that these tables are for one family and that the food is brought out and then the people come and get it. There's a lot of that to work out, Jamie. So, we're hopeful, but nothing's a done deal at this point.
And Dave, yes, so please let me know what we can do. We are absolutely committed to that, to support that initiative. And just a quick comment back to Jamie, money and safety comes together. If you go and have dinner at Duilio, in my case, and you die or you get a major problem, it's going to shut down. And the same for my hotel. If I don't keep it clean and safe, people don't come back. So they are one and the same for 99% of people in business. You want to be safe, you want to be clean to be able to stay in business. So they're not opposite one to the other.
Benedetto, it's true, but my family can't actually fix that if I'm already gone. My family can't fix your decision to be open. And I would suggest that everybody should look at the farmer's market, which I tried to go by this weekend, and that place was terrifying because our neighbors are not respecting social distancing. They were all there. There are people walking around with signs saying, don't congregate, just shop quickly. And it's still terrifying because people walk right at you and walk right by you, brushing up against you, even though there's 25 feet of space across. So the idea that respect is going to happen is delusional. And we can all be your living experiment of finances, but you have to know that people aren't going to respect your rules, just like they're not currently.
Can we,
people who are open aren't respecting the rules, right?
I'd like to ask, we are really starting to come towards the time crunch here. In regard to the outdoor dining program, this is just the beginning, work in progress. Is there anything that we need to vote on at this point, or
that was just an comment
at this point?
Public comments, all you need to
do. Public comment. Anybody have any public comments? Okay. What I'd like to do, because this has been a real action-packed agenda and a lot to cover. What I'd like to do is move the branded swag, which was the potential fundraising, to next meeting, and to do some work on this offline in terms of, Jamie, with your recommendations on what it is that we should go with. And I think that there's been also a lot of information coming out on, how would the money be spent? So is it okay to move the branded swag, the potential fundraising, to the next meeting, and then move forward and let Brian talk about what's going on in Marin County efforts, as we're really coming close to being out of time? Is everyone okay with that?
Jessica, can I ask one question about that? I went through the stuff that you sent yesterday. Is the intention on that program, if you look at the cost per item, That would be our wholesale cost. And if we're trying to do this as a fundraiser, we're going to have to put some kind of markup on it. And when you start to do the markup within what's a reasonable amount of money that somebody would spend on these objects, you got to sell a hell of a lot of units to have the money mean anything appreciably. So I just raise that for consideration in terms of the kinds of things and what kind of market we think we might have for it. So I was particularly drawn to the wearables. I think some of the cup items and things like that are maybe a little more of a stretch, and they've got for the most part, a bigger cost basis. But even a $7 T-shirt marked up 100% is, you got to sell a lot of them to make any money. So something to keep in mind as we're trying to do the numbers on this.
Okay, thank you so much. Is everyone okay with putting this off and maybe working with Jamie offline on coming up with some recommendations? Can I have a show of hands, please? Okay. All right, Brian?
Yeah, so I know we're running out of time, but I think one of the things I can sort of bring to this group is provide a countywide perspective on some of the stakeholders. So I'd like to sort of first touch upon one of my new appointments. So the Marin Select Committee of Marin County Council members and mayors is a group of all the mayors and council members in the county. And I've been fortunate enough to be appointed to the Economic Recovery as co-chair with Kate Collin, who's the vice mayor of San Rafael. And I'll just say, I feel very lucky to be partnered with Kate Collin. She is not only incredibly smart and hardworking, she's already engaged in a whole lot of cross-jurisdictional initiatives in Marin. So I'm really learning a great deal from her, how to sort of get all of the 11 communities in Marin, which are all incredibly different in spite of our proximity. So I just want to acknowledge that. So what the committee is doing is really trying to figure out where we can be additive and connective to all the various stakeholders in the county. And so right now, I'd just like to sort of give a quick overview, because I think one of the challenges is communication. Not necessarily that people don't want to communicate, but you know, at this point, there's so much redundant communication and people having a really hard time, particularly on the local level. So Marin Recovers, which is a website, which I think really needs to sort of, be more than a website. Sort of putting up a website in these days is a challenge. That is the county's home base for what's going on in terms of the overall county recovery. And that is ultimately the primary conduit for Dr. Matt Willis. I think one of the important things that I recently learned is the county health director in California, they only have to take suggestions, right? They have a statutory place where no one is really putting meaningful pressure. They take a lot of input. I have personally spoken with Matt about this situation. I know he's getting a whole lot of input from the other stakeholder groups, but I think that's just, important. Like I said, that was new to me. And then out of Marin Recovers are these various industry groups. And there's some groups, 13 to 14 right now that the county is assembling, and that is modeled after Governor Newsom's model for the state. And one of the comments I've made is that, the industry groups are interesting, but the truth is, if your business, for the most part, has been shut or curtailed for the last 7 weeks, you've probably already sort of figured out what it is you need to do to get consumers to engage with you. And the industry groups are probably on a certain level, just probably bubbling up ideas to share with it, but you're already at a competitive disadvantage if you haven't figured out how to sort that through. And then sort of playing into the advisory groups are obviously the business community, and the business community are the local chambers. And the local chambers, to be frank, are more or less active depending on what the community is. And that really is dependent on, what the size of the business community is, right? Like San Rafael and Novato have, fairly large, significant business communities. Not to say they're more vibrant, but they just have sort of more dollars. And then coupled with that is the Marin Small Business Development Corporation, which you know about, and the Marin Economic Forum. And the Marin Economic Forum is the think tank of Marin, which is funded by the county. Then we go to the local government. And starting from the top, the local government is obviously the Board of Supervisors. and Supervisor Rice, our supervisor, and Supervisor Rodoni, they're heading, he's out of West Marin, they're heading the overall effort, but there's a subcommittee underneath that really focused on small business, and that's Supervisor Junia Arnold out of Novato and Supervisor Damon Conley. So the MCC, I'm partnering along with Kate with Damon and Judy to really focus on small business. So we're really trying to tie in the Marin Small Business Development Corporation and the MEF. And, you know, look, as a small business owner myself, I sort of appreciate the information, but, you know, I sort of go back to my basic point about the piece that I wrote. Like, it's a cash crunch for businesses. And ultimately, cash / liquidity / some kind of letter of credit from institutions are sort of fundamental. And then the last piece, and then sort of also parallel with that is the Marin Managers Group, of which Dave is a part of. And Dave, you can speak to that. That group has been meeting for at least 3 times a week. And I think what that group is really bringing to this process is, one, they're responsible for partnering with their own respective Department of Public Works to execute this. And they are also, I think, the real repositories of the fact that each community's general plan is representative of how each community's sense of place manifests itself. So as all these communities are sort of wrestling with, how do you deal with restaurants? And how do you deal with the data point of that takeout is a generally 1/3 of an eat-in meal for the lack of appetizers and desserts. How can the communities leverage and learn from all that kind of stuff, yet still maintaining their sense of place? And then the last one is schools. And in the schools conversation, I will mention that Kate and I were fortunate enough to spend some time with Senator Mike McGuire. And if you haven't met Senator Mike McGuire, Senator Mike McGuire is everything you would hope for in a human being and a state senator. He is smart, he is engaged, he is incredibly hardworking. And so what I'll share out on this is there are 4 things of interest that Senator McGuire was able to share with Kate and I to take back and then move forward. And the first one is that, you know, from the state, you know, the horizon is, as I'm sure you know, like, you know, 18 months, if and when there's a vaccine, right? The primary thing they're hoping for is testing. The other thing they're deeply focused on really is the tension between the economy and reopening the schools. And the tension is simple, that so long as the schools are closed, you have a real challenge in people with school-age children being able to work. And that's a tension right now that's being worked out at the state level in terms of what is the certainty that can be provided to all segments of society, parents, schools, businesses, about when that will open. The belief is that at the state level, right, and I'm just sharing out this information, is that 30 to 40% of the populace will simply not return to economic activity when the shelter in place is over. That is to say, they will, for the most part, simply stay home. And what does that look like? So the implications are, if that is the case, you know, how do businesses of all types connect with their consumers, right? The plan is that this shelter in place, you know, our Governor Newsom often uses the analogy of a dimmer. You know, however much it's dimmed up over the summer, there's the expectation it will be fully dimmed back down in some part over the fall. The other thing that Senator McGuire brought up that's on his radar after conversations with the state is the status of nonprofits. That is to say, so many nonprofits rely on large public gatherings for public fundraising. And if they can't do that, then what happens to their ability to serve their needs and their populations, and what is that cascading effect? So with those last 2 points, and sorry to go so quickly, I recognize everybody's time, I just want to sort of share out what I consider to be valuable information. One is, as we all know, Marin is an older community relative to California. So what does that 30, 40% look like here? And, you know, we've been fortunate enough that the Marin Community Foundation has stepped up here in Marin to help with rental assistance, excuse me, and with nonprofits. But, you know, who knows what that's gonna look like. All of that, to me, and this is, it sort of speaks to, no one really knows what will consumer behavior be like. right? They just really have no idea from now until whatever the short term is, whatever that looks like, 2 years, 3 years, what people will do in terms of behavior, in terms of, engaging with commerce, engaging with public space, engaging with nonprofits. People are sort of really looking to see what that looks like. I think, and then one last thing, I just wanted to make sure, and, there's so much information. I don't, like Jessica said this morning, hey, Brian, you sent me an email. And you did, and I read it, but we get so many emails right now, right? Like we just do from various sources, right? There is the Great Plates Initiative, right? And the Great Plates Initiative is an initiative coming forth from the state level so that restaurants can be paid to provide meals to seniors and or other people that might not be able to go out. All I'll say with this again, and even though when I'm editorializing, I'm trying to provide, sort of stuff pointed out by data. I know some restaurants in San Anselmo have, and other communities have attempted to access this program. But I think like so many other programs that have been launched at the state and the federal level, like the execution has been challenged. That is to say, so many people are applying, there are enough people to process it, but this is an opportunity for restaurants. The last piece, just to sort of elliptical and go back to, is Dr. Willis, Matt, because his son is in my daughter's grade, and I went to the Netherlands with him. He is getting any number of data points and conversations about the tension between the shelter in place and the economic ramifications. When you see, that's one of the things that the industry group is going. So, that conversation is happening through multiple levels. And then the last thing I would just like to say on a personal note, I'm interacting with the MMA. I just want to thank Dave. I know Dave is an active participant in that group, and sort of what those lessons learned from other communities that can be actualized here in San Anselmo. And from my private conversations with Dave, I think he's been very aware and skillful in working with his team in making sure that San Anselmo's sense of place, or sense of constraints, are allowing us to execute for both our restaurants and our retailers. So again, I apologize. That was a lot of information, but I thought it was important to share with this group. I'm happy to take any questions, and of course, if people have to go, I'm happy to be reached out offline or privately. Yes, Jamie. Sorry, Jessica.
Brian, could you tell us, did you hear anything in your committee meetings about the age? You mentioned briefly that we have an older population. Is there any indication from data you've seen about what that population is? Like I've seen on a governmental level that they're going to change the standards for us moving forward, maybe June 1st, but that for people 60 and above, 70 and above, those standards are going to stay in place for 12 to 18 months. What age group, what percentage of people of our local residents do you think that affects?
So, I have not. And part of that, Jamie, is there's so much information around. I have really been focused on the economic piece, but of course, it all transitions with the health. What I have heard, because, and forgive me, there's two other data points I wanted to touch on, is that what's happening at a high level at the state is exactly what is that number, right? Is that number 65? Is that number 70? Is that number even as low as 55? And so at this point, the last I heard from earlier conversations this week is that number is still under discussion, but that number is probably lower. What percentage of Marin? I don't know what that looks like. And then there's two other data points I would like to talk about. So one, I'm a director of Marin Transit, and I'm also a commissioner on the Transportation Authority Marin. So, the use of public transportation has just gone way down. It's like, it's down anywhere from 80 to 90% what that looks like. So there's a real question of, in the short term, I think our public transit is financially viable due to the reserves, Marin County received a significant amount of the CARES money to help out those systems. I was on a conversation yesterday at TAM, and there is a discussion that congestion will actually increase post COVID-19 because people will simply not want to be on public transit. And so there's a question of what does that actually look like. So Marin Transit and TAM already had a first and last mile conversation with Uber and Lyft. And that actually might play a larger role because, you know, people just want to be in their own cars. The other piece I think that's super interesting is, you know, what will school look like in the fall, right? And I say that just as a question of there is a conversation at the highest levels of the state, you know, when we reopen schools, how do they look like? And one of those data points for that is, and I go back to congestion, is the Ross Valley School District has yellow bus service to, for the most part, to get students from Fairfax and essentially from San Anselmo to White Hill. All right, and there's a number of stakeholders in that, one of which is Marin Transit. A couple days ago, last week, Mill Valley canceled its yellow bus school service because one of the data points coming out was that you will only be able to have 8 students on a bus, on a yellow school bus, right? So, as you know, I like to go to I like to cut to the quick. If you have 8 students on a yellow school bus, is there a point in having a meeting? Because is that service remotely even financially viable, right? So I'm just sort of saying, like, and then if that service is not even financially viable, what does that look for in terms of a cascading congestion effect through San Anselmo all the way up to French Drake and parents and all that kind of stuff, right? So I think that's another thing that will be cascading through / at the highest levels of the state. Just to tie into that, what does a classroom look like, right? You know, like, and I say that I'm aware that those discussions are that are being had right now. I'm not in a position to speak to them. Governor Newsom put out that school might start in July. Additional reports and said he hadn't engaged any of the major stakeholders, including the teachers union, about what that looked like. So I am skeptical that school will start then. But I do think as a community, we're going to have to sort of figure out what that is. So anyway, the long-winded answer to your question, Jamie, but I had forgotten those 2 data points and wanted to answer.
Thank you so much. Anybody else have any questions of Brian? Public comments, questions?
I'm sorry, just to add, just to add to the list of all the authorities involved that Brian made, that finally, and that would be great if we can follow up with that, you know, in writing, so we know exactly how many are involved in any decision. I would like to add that I shared briefly with Brian recently, the County of Marin is also supporting with money the Marine Convention Bureau. They have a full staff, and unfortunately, because San Anselmo doesn't have an hotel tax, they basically ignore San Anselmo. And I've been kind of sharing that with Katie Rice, and it may be something the EDC might bring up officially, you know, that even if we don't have a sales tax, because they get money from the county, they should support San Anselmo. And I say that specifically now, you know, in reopening and supporting our community.
We seem to have lost Benedetto. Can anybody hear?
I can hear you.
Brian, okay, why don't you, are there any other questions for Brian at this point while we try to get Benedetto? Kelly?
Yeah, Brian, so based on what you just told us, Brian, that letter that we're talking about doing with our data and sending it to Matt, it seems like some of these other, am I reading this correctly? Maybe some of these other groups, it might be helpful for that letter to go to them as well. Is that can be useful information from them? Are you already, or do we give it to you to take out, or to take to them, or how, I guess,
No,
how best do we communicate that?
That's a great question, Kelly. I think the letter well placed would best be placed to go to Katie Rice and Dennis, and then also to Judy and Damon, and then just sort of CC me on it. So what I'm happy to do afterwards, Kelly, is I can find out exactly what the title of their names are, because they are sort of as the soups they're leading Marin recovers. And the other thing I can do is there's 2 county team members that have been put in charge of Marin Recovers. So why don't I get you those names? And then if you CC, I can CC me. I'll make sure it doesn't slip through the cracks and draw their personal attention to it. How's that?
Thank you so much, Brian.
Happy to do so.
Okay, any other questions for Brian? Public comments? Okay, we are over time, and I think at this point what we're going to do is close the meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 9th at 8:30 a.m. If you could forward any requests for agenda items via email to myself and Elise, that would be great. The other items that we did not cover under section 5 and 6 will automatically be added. Jamie, your information with the branded items, the swag for potential fundraising, we're also going to add to next agenda as well. All right, I want to thank everybody for sticking through this long meeting, and look forward to working with all of you offline as well. Thank you. The meeting is officially adjourned.
Thank you.
Scott,
Yeah.
can you stick around for just 1 second? We're going to see what happens in the event Sarah leaves.
In the
Okay, so
event,
everybody else can get off. We're just doing tech.
We need
Oh,
a
okay.
test, a
All
tech
right.
test.
okay.
The meeting's over.
Thank you.
Thank you, Benedetto.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, she left and it's going, so we're good.
Okay.
That's
All right,
it worked. We have a backup. Just in case we were wondering what would happen if an internet connection went down with a meeting shut down.
Okay. So we're good then? We're
Yeah, we're
finished.
good. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
everyone.
I'll send you the draft minutes soon.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, and I've
All
been
right.
taking a lot of notes. I want to reach out to Lori with her Madge and the hat company. I've been very intrigued with that shop. And Scott, thank you so much with the parking. Sorry, you're off the hook for today. How's that?
Yeah, I'm just, I didn't know if the EDC supports not charging for parking downtown. I would think it would. but-
I think I'm guessing at this point, since there's not a problem, it's not really a problem, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
I sent out everybody, copies of the your report to everybody. Maybe what you can do is also take that report and send it out to committee members, asking their opinion on it as well.
Well, I would think that if anyone had a negative opinion, they would have.
We would have heard about it. Yeah. It looked great to me.
I've been going around to the parking lots during the day and there's only 3 or 4 cars in them. And if we charge, they just move out to the avenue because, they're only parking there because it's easy and free.
Yeah.
They had to pay.
It's true.
There's plenty of other places to park. And we'll just keep monitoring it. And if it picks up to the point of being a problem, like we had before this happened, then we can, at that point, put in pay stations and start charging for parking and
maybe, or is the council's considering that tonight? 'Cause I was gonna say,
Tonight,
maybe we should add that to our next newsletter, just as information too,
Yeah, because the big reason to take it to the council is that we don't want to reinitiate the yearly contract with San Rafael for maintenance of the old meters that only take coins and don't take bills or credit cards and frequently break, and there's no spare parts, and there's just a mess. And so we just want to get rid of that. And then if we do need to start charging for parking again, we either use a pay station or some other technology that's a little more modern.
It made sense to me. The return on investment wasn't there for what you guys were paying, I guess is okay. I think Scott, that was it for the parking, correct? So, I mean, we don't really need to do anything at this point. We'll just put you over for the next meeting, and you'll probably have even more to hopefully report out on with businesses opening up for at least curbside, service, that sort of thing. So
Yeah. We'll see.
anyway, okay. Thank you so much, Scott.
All right, bye, everyone.
All right, bye. Thank you.